to Capital Interactive with Adam and Besim. We're very excited today because we're going to be starting more podcasts, but more specifically as it pertains to entrepreneurship. And today's episode is going to be called Alice in Wonderland Entrepreneurs. And we're going to get into that in a bit. We have a very special guest. We have Manuel Aguilar, and we want to introduce you to him first before we get into this topic. So with that, let's introduce Manuel.
Hey, Manuel, it's good to see you.
What's up, Besim?
How's everything going?
What's up, Boz? What's up,
going?
everybody out there?
Man, I'm really excited that you're here today because I think you've got some really great perspective to share with us. And before we kind of jump into that perspective, I want people to know who you are. I know you pretty well. We've worked on a lot of projects together, nonprofits and other stuff. And I've really seen you help a lot of people, man. But I'm excited for people to get to know you a little bit more. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Why don't you start just real briefly, kind of where you're from, how you grew up, and then we'll get into some of your work experience.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, it's been, we've known each other for several years. Just to give everybody a little bit of background, it all started when I was 2 years old. No, I'm just kidding, man. I won't go that far back. Everybody. Well, what do I say? I was in banking for 14 years. I've always been drawn to entrepreneurship. My mother has had a school bus service for the last 40 years.
Man.
And she never did it as a means to put food, to become a millionaire. She did it to put food on the table. And so I think that's why I've always gravitated towards entrepreneurship. In banking, I was able to, be a small business champion and a small business relationship manager, which is why I got into commercial lending. Heck, I even helped start a bank.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my drive comes from living, eating, and breathing entrepreneurship. The highs, the lows, the what do you do during the summers when there's no income coming in because there was no school.
Yeah.
And so I grew up with that, and that's all I know. And so as my education evolved, as I got older and wiser, I really decided that I wanted to be in a position where I could help other entrepreneurs, right, with my own experiences. Entrepreneurship is it has one of the lowest barriers to entry, which is great, but it also has a really high probability of failure as well if you don't do things right.
Sure.
And unfortunately, there's a lot of entrepreneurs who will never get out there to see that success that they want to reach because they don't have that support or they don't have that knowledge or they're out there going at it alone.
Sure.
So my quest has been to engage entrepreneurs so much that after having built and sold some businesses myself, I decided to how do I want to make a difference? So they say you learn in your 20s, you earn in your 30s, and once you start getting into your 40s, you start thinking about that purpose and that fulfillment. And I've dedicated my life really very focused on entrepreneurship and education. I was up until recently, I was the lead faculty for Goldman Sachs in the 10,000 Small Businesses, both local but as well as national. And that is a program that is specifically geared towards growing and scaling a business.
Sure.
I currently have investments in businesses, and I currently have a business, an accounting business as well that we kicked off, and that even during the pandemic we were able to hire 10 people.
Yeah.
And so I think that the knowledge that I want to share with you all and that I want to drop with you all is to help you become better, to help you think about the things that you need to consider and how to scale. Even in a bad situation, how can you still scale a business, and what things do you have to talk about? I think today we're going to talk about one of those topics, and we're looking forward to getting your feedback. Leave your comments and let us know what you think about this episode as well.
Yeah, and one of the things that I really like about your experience is that, you've had both kind of that corporate experience as well as the entrepreneurship experience. And I think it's kind of interesting because you get a lot of people that once they get into the corporate world, they start becoming a lot more risk adverse. you know, and they don't want to take that risk
Absolutely.
anymore. They're used to getting that paycheck. They're used to having somebody else have all that
Right. It's
responsibility. Yeah. And so, like, you know, it's kind of hard then once you're making a good living, having some success in corporate life, to move away from that, you know. So that's one of the things I really admired about you, is that you were in the, you know, in the corporate world, kind of, so to speak, were being very successful, but still had that itch and that bug to get out there and do something, and were able to kind of grow some businesses, you know. And you know, you see a lot of people that they start in business and they fail and they don't have any of that corporate experience, which is actually in some ways really good, because it helps you provide some structure, gives you a different way to learn while somebody else is paying for it. If you fail, it's on somebody else's dime, that type of thing. But at the same time, you know, you start getting a little bit of comfortable. And then once you get that comfort, it's, you know, a lot of times that's game over. And pretty much nobody, then a lot of people don't want to break off. So tell us a little bit about, before we get into our topic here, how you were able to transition away from corporate life and kind of get back into entrepreneurship, even after you were doing so much in the corporate space.
Absolutely. And Besim and Boz, I would love to come back and talk about something that we call the employee entrepreneur, because my belief is that even if you are an employee in a company, if you have the right mindset, you can think like an entrepreneur. Sure. And you can scale your career like an entrepreneur, so that it doesn't get stagnant, so that it doesn't get boring. And then maybe you decide to make that switch over to becoming a full-fledged entrepreneur for yourself. Because in my opinion, entrepreneurship is the great equalizer. You can go from having nothing to having something, having grown something in a much faster way than you can just doing things every bi-weekly. Now, don't get me wrong. I think that everybody has something to offer to entrepreneurship, but for me, it was how do I grow both from my standard of living, but also for my kids, right? And then how do I surround myself? So I think it was important to get that corporate knowledge. I think there's a lot of benefit from it, but the way my brain is wired, because I lived and I saw what my mother went through in growing, scaling her business to just putting food on the table for us. That's where my drive came from. But if there's anybody out there who is considering making a move or wants to still advance their career, there is a lot that you can do when you have the right mindset. And I'd love to be able to come back and we can talk about
definitely.
Well,
we're going to have you back multiple times, so don't think you're getting out of here with like one or two shows. We're going to have you coming back, because we know
so much to talk about.
We know you've got a lot of experience, and you know what's really interesting is that Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program that you talked about earlier. I mean, you had through that the opportunity to mentor and talk to hundreds of businesses and really see. And when they say small businesses, this is not like your mom and pop shop. This is companies that are, some of them are tens of millions of dollars in revenue.
Oh, you know? Absolutely.
And so these are companies that are taking it serious. They're looking to scale. They're looking to sell their business. And you've dealt with a lot of them, helping them get over major challenges and then helping them kind of grow into a place where they can actually, you know, have an exit.
Oh, absolutely.
And so, which kind of brings us a little bit into our topic today.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go ahead and jump right into it. Adam, why don't you?
Yeah. No, it's a topic I'm very interested to hear some of the ins and outs of it. The name alone is very enticing. So let's talk about Alice in Wonderland Entrepreneurs. Manuel, how'd you come up with this name? What does it mean? Kind of give a real high level view of what you mean when you say Alice in Wonderland Entrepreneurs, because I'm very interested in this topic.
Sure, absolutely. So if you haven't already seen the cartoon growing up as a kid, you'll if you think about Alice in Wonderland, it's about this girl Alice that goes down the rabbit hole, which really is a lot like entrepreneurship, going down the rabbit hole, because there's so many things that can happen. It can get a little crazy, but what really spoke to me, and you got to think about Alice in Wonderland was written in 1865.
Wow.
And so when you think about the last, 160 years, something like that, there's messages that if you think about the time that it was written, there were always messages that were intended for what was going on and what people should be thinking about.
Sure.
And so there's a scene in Alice in Wonderland that always just spoke to me as an entrepreneur, where Alice is going, where she's lost. And she comes across this Cheshire cat. And the Cheshire cat, she says, hey, I'm lost. Which way do I go? He says, well, the Cheshire Cat says, well, where are you trying to go? And she says, well, it doesn't really matter so long as I get there.
Yeah.
And then the cat's like, well, if you walk long enough, you'll eventually get there. and that is what I feel in the 500 plus businesses that I help through and mentor through Goldman Sachs and Baker Ripley, the Spanish language entrepreneurship program, and even over my banking career. There are a lot of people who, when you ask them, what is it that your goal is with this business? Like, what are you trying to reach? What are you trying to do? A lot of times, boss, they don't know. They don't know. It's like they're just going through the motions.
Yeah.
And so for me, it became, well, if you're just going through the motions then how do you know how hard to push? How do you know where to step on the brake? How do you know what decisions you need to make if you don't know where you're headed? And so Alice in Wonderland Entrepreneurs are entrepreneurs who are going through the motions, who maybe they're making a little money or maybe they're making a lot of money, but they still don't know like what it's all leading to.
Yeah. Actually, you know what's interesting is that, and I just kind of thought about this, is that, you know, another thing that I see a lot of entrepreneurs do is they don't have a vision for their business. They have a vision for their lifestyle. They just say,
Correct.
I want to have control over my time. I want to pick up and do this and that. But that has nothing to do with their business. Mm-hmm. You know, they're not really thinking about how to grow their business.
The business is there to feed their lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, which there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean, that definitely can change the vision and the drive. I mean, you have to know where you're going to be going and how you're going to get there.
Well, so think about this year alone. There are a lot of lifestyle businesses, a lot of entrepreneurs who didn't have a goal, who were just going through the motions. They're making money, they're happy, but they don't know where that exit is or when they want to get off this roller coaster ride of entrepreneurship, or get out of the rabbit hole that is entrepreneurship. And so they're they're lost, right? And so it really became, you've seen a lot of businesses falter. You see a lot of them that are on dental floss, I call it, right? Where they're on a lifeline. And so to me, it seems that part of that is you weren't really set up, or you weren't setting up your business to be able to fortify it so that you can have the option to exit, and you can and you can create that value. A lot of businesses, this is their retirement vehicle.
Yeah.
And so if you're not creating value and wealth in your business, then your retirement fund is not going to look all that great.
Yeah, and it's not just about creating value, it's creating transferable value.
Absolutely.
Because if you are the business and you go away, the whole point of you selling your business at some point is for someone else to be able to take it over and be able to continue with that path. And if everything was relying upon you, then, I mean, what are you selling? You know?
Exactly.
And you might
I think you bring up a good point. Let's hit on that. Let's talk about that, because that really drives what a business is doing, what an entrepreneur, what their end goal may or may not be. And let's talk about exit versus the option to exit, because those are two very related topics, but how you get there is at times a winding road.
Oh, absolutely. So there's a lot of hesitance to, if you will, make that commitment. A lot of people, because they don't know what options they have, right? So you can go into an IPO, you can sell to a strategic, you can sell to a financial buyer, you can leave it to your employees, you can die in your business. That's some people's exit strategy.
No matter what you think you're going to do, you're going to exit the business.
Oh, 100%.
It's just like under what terms?
That's right.
You say like you said, at the very worst case scenario, you're going to die and it's going to be gone. And so have you set things up ahead of time for that exit, you know? And there's so many different things. And I think it's really important to define those things, because a lot of people, for example, they want to leave their business to their kids, you know, but are your kids interested in that business? Are they prepared?
Besim, I know you have come across this as well. We've had conversations with clients where when we discuss an exit, a sale, whatever you want to call it, and they're definitely later on in their career, it's not even something that they have thought about.
Absolutely.
Not even a topic that they've discussed. Just thinking, well, the gears are going to keep going after I'm gone. That's not always the case, and we find oftentimes when we have that discussion with an entrepreneur, with a client, a business owner, and we talk about either secession or exit or so on and so forth, it's something that never crossed their mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And so the issue with that committing to a path is an issue for a lot of entrepreneurs. So what I say, it's always, so you're a kid and there's that thing that you want, but then you can have it and then you don't really want it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you work hard and you go out there and you sell some papers, or you whatever it is, right? You sell some cans and you scrape up the money, and then it becomes, well, now that I have this, it's not as desirable, right?
Sure.
It's like the people who, you see that Ferrari driving by, you're like, oh, that Rolls Royce, you're like, oh, that'd be so cool to have that, right?
Once you got it, you
and
don't
then
want it
once you
anymore.
have the money in the bank, and you're like, it's like, did I really want it, or did I just wanted to be able to have it if I wanted it? And so what I share with entrepreneurs, and I share this with all of you out there, is it's not so much about the exit as much as it is having the option to exit, right? Because a lot of things have to line up. A lot of variables have to come together. The market has to be right. The timing has to be on point. So there's a lot of things that have to happen. But if you operate your business with the option to exit, then you will be at a point where you can say, you know what? I'm ready to take some chips off the table.
Yeah.
I'm ready to cash out. What does that look like? And now I'm prepared, because we talk to people all the time who say, I want to exit my business. But what they don't realize is that they have to prep their business for the next 2 to 3 years just to create that transferable value. But then,
absolutely.
But it's not, you just sell your business, here's a check. There's also a transition. There's also, you're going to be on board. There's also a process. So it could be 5 years out. I've talked to people who were 70, 72 years old and who were just now thinking about what that exit is going to be. And when I told them about that timeline, they're like, oh man, now I'm going to be 77 before I can get out of this. And it doesn't sit well.
That's an important point, because there's things that change in people's lives and they're not expecting it. And they need to have their business in a way that is transferable. Let's say, for example, somebody's going around operating their business and this pandemic hits and they're thinking to themselves, man, life's precious. I don't want to spend the next 30 years running this business. It's been fun building it. But now their whole perspective has shifted, but their business might not be in a position to transfer to somebody. They might not be in a position to capture the value. And so what's going to happen is they're going to be in either they're going to be stuck in the business, or they're going to be in a position where they have to get less value than what they've actually created, or they're going to have to stick around, do something. But there's, if they can build their business on a consistent basis that detaches them a little bit from the business, and that's more of a transferable value, that's going to allow them to be more nimble when things change in their life.
Absolutely.
We see a lot of people, for example, they have grandkids. They have grandkids and they're like, you know what? I want to just spend time with my grandkids now. Like something changes, and like that, the priority is no longer the business.
Life happens.
Yeah. And so you can't just, like you said, just decide that, okay, now I'm going to start, because maybe 5, 10 years, maybe 3 years from now, I want to sell the business. You never know when that's going to hit. Maybe there's a change in your industry where it's like right now your value is the highest, but if you can't transfer the value, like what are you doing? So yeah, I definitely think this is very important for people to consider before they get too deep. Yeah, before they just like lose a lot of value. But
no, and so one of the things that I came across one time, Boz, was Mark Cuban says, if you are starting your business and you're already considering your exit, then he thinks that's not good.
Yeah.
And to me, it's, well, it's easy to say that when you're a billionaire, right?
I know,
right?
Yeah.
But I'll call Mark Cuban out, saying that you do have to, because everybody is dealt a different hand, and you have to play it differently. So I say, and look, this applies to whether you're a just getting going, $100,000 a year business, but I've seen people running 20 and 30 and $40 million companies, Besim, that don't know where this is going to end up and where it's heading. I've done it being in investment banking, which I didn't talk about, investment banking for 3 years. We had those conversations.
Sure.
This isn't something that's just small business, which people think is just a mom and pop shop. These are large middle market corporations, lower middle market corporations that still don't know, and they have the same issues as the small businesses.
And a lot of times, one of the reasons they don't know is because their business is so big. They're spending so much time focused on the business, focused on what I'm doing day to day, focused on that they haven't even thought about it. Mm-hmm. And as crazy that sounds for somebody outside to say, it's actually true. I mean, like, you get so involved in it, but most people, when they think, oh, it's, that's why I would start a business, I want to sell it. But no, a lot of people, they kind of just happen into businesses and they start growing it. They hit something and they start growing, they start focusing on their operations. Next thing you know, the business has $50 million in revenue, and they're like, they haven't even thought about getting out,
Absolutely. And you know who's knocking on their doors? Private equity, VCs, and they're looking for garage sale pickups.
They want to have some skin in the game too. If you don't want to sell it, hey, I'll try and sell it for you. I just need 25% equity
or they want to buy it off of him because they're getting a garage sale price, because their business, they see what they can do to tweak it and make it $100 million versus the business owner that's maybe 20 or 30 million doesn't see that value and doesn't know what to tweak.
Yep, they'll bring in the whole new management team.
Yep, because they never ran it with the option to exit.
Yep, yeah, exactly.
So here, I think we have a very good transition. It kind of parlays into our next topic, because just like you two, I've talked to clients where they talk about potentially selling and transitioning one day. Well, talk is cheap. You can talk all you want. You haven't enacted anything. Yep. You might know of it and you might be thinking about it. So so let's get to the second topic here. Prepping for the option. I know you mentioned that a couple of times, Manuel, because like we said, talk is cheap. How do you prep for this option?
Oh, so I mean, and here's the thing. It is not rocket science, right? It's just putting things in a specific order that you can address within your business, right? So, what are some of the? Let me turn the question back around to you guys. What do you think are some of those things that businesses are needing to consider?
Yeah, so I had a few things, and I was going to say it's not all the business. Some of that stuff's the personal side. There are ways that when you're going to exit a business that you can, do some tax planning ahead of time. Loss harvesting in a few years or stuff like that. How about like management team making sure you have the key people in place with long contracts so that as you transfer it, what else is there? There's setting up procedures and protocols in your business so that people understand how things happen, documenting information. A lot of stuff's just tribal knowledge. Let's document that so that as we're passing it along, somebody knows it. I mean, there's a lot of different things.
And we've talked about this on a number of different podcasts. And just another way is getting your financials in order from the business. When you look at a multiple and you really want to make the biggest impact, get the biggest multiple, the biggest bang for your buck, that starts with getting your financials in order. That's not difficult to do. It's obviously at cost, but it's a tremendous value at the end to start prepping your business for sale, because especially these larger businesses, if you have very high quality financial statements, that puts you in a tremendously different bucket than your standard, run of the mill financials.
Oh, absolutely. I've been part of the process where a software company was going to sell off they were going to do a majority recapitalization, which is they were selling over 50% of their business to a private equity company who wanted to come in and manage it and help them scale it. And it was amazing to me how unprepared the company was, and which is why they brought me in to help them with that. But they were very unprepared. They knew they were making money, but they couldn't tell you where the best opportunities were to make the money, where the expenses were really manageable, and what they had to do. So this PE firm came in and we handed over the information. They then took it, ran it through their model, and said, okay, yeah, we're going to get in on this, right? And I think they picked up a deal. I think if the company would have waited another year or two and had they done things a little differently, it would have been a much different story. But again, and I know you're out there, business owners that are at that point between, again, starting to in the lower middle market range, or even in middle market range, is think about, it's about people, right? It's going to be about the processes, the documentation of the processes. It's going to be about what is your, where are your opportunities to grow, to scale? Like what's going to be, think about a PE firm. They have a 5-year window. right? So they're making a bet based on what's going to happen in 5 years. So how do you set up your business in an innovative way that your business is going to be sort of hot still when that 5 year time comes around, so that they can then say, all right, we're going to cash in, and maybe you get a second bite of the apple, or maybe your business is so attractive that you've lined it up, you saw where the market was going, you adjusted or you pivoted, you created that maximum value, that transferable value, and now you're ready to cash out. And now instead of getting a little pile of money, now you're getting a big pile of money. And at the end of the day, that's what you want, especially if you're going to go off and either hang out on the beach or buy another business or whatever it is that you want to do.
Okay, so I was going to tell you guys, I've got actually another really interesting example of something that, that a business owner did not do to prep themselves for an exit. So
let's start right with that.
Yeah. So basically, when I was running my business, we took over some distressed assets. And one of the things that we took over was we were trying to take over a contract for this company, one of their biggest contracts. And when we went over to go talk to the customer, there was no language in their contract to allow for a transition to a new operator. This cost us over $100,000 just in legal fees. The client was in the Middle East. We had to fly back and forth multiple times. We had to meet with their legal team. We had to meet with their operations team, all this kind of stuff. And it became a huge problem because the contract that we were taking over, the company that originally signed it, they didn't have any provisions in there for somebody else taking over the contract. We had to completely take over the entire cost structure of the project. We had to do everything, and it was very difficult for us to do. We ended up executing on it just fine, but it was very expensive. And if there was some forethought about the transfer of some of these contracts, that could have been easily written into the initial contract. That would have made it a lot easier, and it would have been a lot better for us. And so if you have the opportunities when you're writing up contracts, things like that, that's another type of thing that you can do, because a lot of times there'll be clauses that in contracts that if there's a change in ownership, that nullifies the contract.
Yep.
And so there's a lot of small things that people don't even think about. Yep. They'll just sign these boilerplate contracts, and a lot of times the customer doesn't even really care. Sometimes they care, and it's a deal. It's a big deal. But a lot of times they don't even care. It's just kind of boilerplate language that, some lawyer 20 years ago put in their contracts, and they've been using them now for forever. And if you would have just asked the question, hey, do you mind if I switch this out there in case something, in case we sell the business at some point or whatever, it's not even an issue.
Yep.
But there's a lot of things on the business side, and I think the personal side's important too. What are you going to do when you get rid of the business?
Absolutely.
I can't tell you how many times we have had business owners sell their business, and we'll call them back after a month or two and just be like, hey, man, how things going? And they're bored. They don't know what to do.
Yeah.
Sure. Oftentimes you see them stay on as a consultant or something because they just have such a hard time fully breaking away from the business.
Yeah. You can only go play golf so long. Right?
Maybe I could play a few rounds.
You can only go in the sun and play golf so long, and then you start itching for that, fulfillment and stuff. So so you want to have stuff lined up. You want to know what you're going to be doing. Maybe you're going to be doing nonprofit work. Maybe you're going to be spending time with family. Maybe you're going to be traveling. We've had people that thought they were going to travel for the rest of their life, and then they travel for a year and they get tired of it. They just get tired of always moving. It's kind of really think through what you're going to do when you leave the business. You know. And you can start doing some of that stuff ahead of time. If you want to be involved in nonprofits, start off volunteering a little bit at your church or your mosque or at whatever kind of organization that you like, and then you're ready to take a more prominent role when you leave.
Yep. And if you think about talking about Alice in Wonderland Entrepreneurs, Alice in Wonderland was lost. Mm-hmm. She was trying to find her way. She was coming across all these situations, but again, a lot of times entrepreneurs can avoid those type of issues if they just had access to people, the right people, to surround themselves, for them to say, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? You mentioned going in this direction. Here's some things you should consider. Now, having great, great bankers, great attorneys, great advisors, all that comes into play. But sometimes entrepreneurs get so entrenched in their business that they don't come up for air. And they don't, by the time they do, it's an oh shit moment.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
you know what else
so-
I've seen happen? This happened with one of my favorite clients, actually. Like, we were talking one day, and I was like, "Hey, man, you know, what's your exit strategy? What are you planning on this and that?" And he was like, so not scared, but like so hesitant to bring it up with me because he was like, you know, Besim's making money off of my deals, this and that, and he's not going to want to help see this go away. I mean, at the end of the day, yes, I was making money off of his business, but I want to see what's best for him. So, you know, we were actually able to help that guy get $8 additional million in the sale of his business. He had a cash offer. You know, it was a 7-figure cash offer. We were able to give him additional $8 million in the sale because he got us involved.
Yep.
If I hadn't asked the question, he would have never told me. He would have eventually sold the building. I mean, sold his business and lost out on $8 million.
Yeah.
You know, we were able to get him a strategic buyer that had that was able to pay a higher multiple. But you know, sometimes don't be afraid to talk about this with people. You know, there are people that have your best interest in heart and they want to see things go well for you. So just, you know, make sure that if you have a goal, it's okay to talk about it. You know,
one of my sort of beliefs is that of why business owners, why entrepreneurs don't ask for help and don't ask for resources. And I know you're out there, and I know that you're hearing this, that you know that you're not asking for help, you're not asking for assistance. And I believe that part of it is that, for lack of better words, entrepreneurs are scared to open up the kimono.
sure.
Right. And you're going to see them in their full nakedness.
I know.
In that people are going to see some of the bad decisions that you've made in your business.
Right.
And how
That's a good
you're not
point.
running it well. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they identify with their business. Sometimes they get lost. And that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
Is getting lost in the distinction between am I this business, or is this business its own
Itself, and do I have my own value?
Yeah. You know, so they're so intertwined that they lose themselves, and they don't ask for help because they know they've messed up. They know you haven't done some things the right way, but not asking for help is the wrong thing to do, because if your goal is to not be an Alice in Wonderland entrepreneur, then you need to surround yourself with people that can help you think about those things, so that you no longer have to worry about being ashamed of some of the bad decisions that you've made and where you're at in the business and how long you've had the business, and not seeing the successes that other business owners have had. Everybody is dealt a different hand, and so you should definitely look to surround yourself with the right people and be open about, here's where I messed up, here's what I did well. Let's work on those things, and then let's keep moving forward.
Yeah, and very similar to that is it might not also be that they messed up. It might be that they're just used to having everyone thinking they have all the answers. And there might be a fear there that if an employee or a spouse or somebody finds out that they don't have an answer for something, that
Right.
will like somehow lose some of their cachet or lose some of their authority in their business.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember when I was running my business, there was so much time I was spent, by myself working on stuff, and I'm supposed to have the answers to stuff, and I don't know, what I'm doing, or trying to figure something out, or like it might be just too early for me to share information with employees or whatnot.
Yep.
And so, because they're looking at you and they want that stability.
Yep.
And so you're used to being the rock for your company. You're used to being out there, being the leader. And if you don't have an answer to something, sometimes the entrepreneur feels, okay, well, maybe that'll create instability in the business.
Yep.
But there's ways around that. You can get outside advisors. I mean, there's things like Vistage. There's things like, there's organizations.
Score. There are good people out there.
Yeah. And
Some bad people, you got to vet them.
Yeah.
There's some good people out there.
But I think it's always interesting to have, and like it's even good for just like professionals to do this. Have a little board of directors, like a board of directors, your personal
Advisory board.
Yeah, advisory board.
Buy them lunch.
I don't mean like it's a formalized board of directors, but have a little group of people that advise you and give you some advice on stuff, and that you can go to and talk to, and that they're going to keep it to themselves, and maybe they're completely detached from the business, and that outside perspective is going to help them give you some good advice.
Yep.
And just so I think you're definitely right. I mean, it's good to have someone else to be a sounding board on, and somebody that's gone through it before.
Absolutely.
And especially if you have someone like you that has seen a lot of different businesses, because you can go through it yourself and that's one experience. But if you've been there and you've mentored 500 businesses, you're going to see similar patterns, because something might happen in one individual and then maybe that's just an anomaly. But, if you're seeing this over and over again because you've been involved in so many businesses, you'll be able to kind of cut through really quick and kind of give them some real direct advice.
Absolutely. Have you guys seen the movie 40-Year-Old Virgin?
Yeah.
It's a funny movie. If you haven't seen it,
Exactly.
go look for it on
best
one,
parts
one
where
of
he
the
takes
sides.
off his chest.
Yeah. So there's a scene in there where they tell him, he was scared. He didn't know how to talk to this girl, and they tell him, well, just every time she asks you a question, you ask the same question. So she'd say, hi, and he'd be like, hi. She's like, how are you? He's like, how are you? It's like, what are you doing? He's like, what are you doing? and so it's funny because I actually take that approach. I take that 40-year-old virgin approach. And when entrepreneurs want to talk and they're saying, well, what about this? And I say, what about it? And then a lot of times talking through their own situations, just asking the questions that they're asking and having them think through them. A lot of times they have the answers. They're just not thinking about them until they have a sounding board.
Sure.
Right. And so my recommendation to entrepreneurs that are out there, again, no matter how much money you think you have, everybody shares some fundamental things that we need to address, is don't be afraid to ask for directions, right? Don't be afraid to stop and get out the car and say, all right, I'm lost. What do I need to do to get back on track?
Sure.
Right? Here's where I'm trying to head.
Right. So you guys, obviously have brought up a lot of good points here. So what we've been talking about, really with this last topic is getting out of the rabbit hole, right? Getting that guidance to get you the direction and the help that you need. And, from surrounding yourself with people that know how to help and guide you. Manuel, why don't you just speak real quickly to, let's keep it high level. What are some of the first steps an entrepreneur can do to surround themselves with the talent and the people that can help them to get from point A to point B?
Absolutely. So a lot of times it's asking the simple question of auditing. Like, let me just audit like myself. Let me audit my business. Let me just run a real quick high level audit. And that audit involves asking yourself questions. It could be, if it's going to be on the business side, okay, again, where do I want to go? What are my goals? Where do I think the next thing for my business is? And then you start asking the question, who do I have access to? And who am I missing? What chess pieces am I missing to be able to play that game? Right? And so when you start asking yourself from who do I need to surround myself with? That's where it's going to come from. I was part of a chamber of commerce, and I've been to many chamber of commerce events. And a lot of times people don't show up with a plan. They just want to meet people, and they're handing out business cards. These business owners, well, I don't know, I might meet somebody, and that's not strategic. That's not. It's not laser focused, which is what you need to be. And so when you know specifically, I need to have this type of lawyer, this type of banker, I need to visit with this person that works in this corporation to be able to get a proposal to them for my business. So if you don't know what you're shooting for, then you're kind of just shooting in the dark, and you really won't achieve what you want to achieve, because now what you're doing is you're hoping to get lucky, right? That you meet somebody who's going to help you, versus being strategic and laser focused and saying, all right, these are the people that I need to surround myself with. Now, you can do that so you ask yourself, financially, who's on my team? Who do I have access to? Well, I got access to Besim. I got access to the boss. I got access to so-and-so at X bank, or I got access to so-and-so financial person. All right, what about your sales? What do you have access to? Well, I really don't. Okay, what about the marketing? It's like, well, I was just going to hire this company. But if you don't know what you want, then what are you going to tell them to do? Because then you're going to give them money, and they're just going to shoot in the dark and then not hit anything. So to answer your question, it really is about first doing an audit, right? A very basic audit of what are the things that I want, what am I trying to achieve. It's not rocket science. The second part of who are the people that I believe need to get me there? Because look, if you look at your network, the truth is a lot of people, because they're so entrenched in their business, that they might make a new friend every now and then,
Sure.
but they're not
Yeah.
expanding their network, and because
That's
they're
their
not
business network.
that's right, that's their business network, and
Yeah.
you have to make the time to go. I always recommend to people to, hey, if you're not meeting at least 3 to 5 people a week, new people, meaning go grab coffee, see what they're doing, and it's not just about helping yourself, but it's also about how do you help them,
Yeah.
right? Because it all comes back full circle. If you're not doing that, then in this day and age, then you are going to be left behind, and you're going to be doing processes, executing on processes and procedures that maybe worked for you 5 and 10 years ago. But the truth is, as fast as things are moving now, if you're not actively looking to surround yourself with the people who can help you on your journey as you continue to scale your business, to have the option to exit, then you're going to be left behind if you're not doing that. So audit, identify, and then go out there and say, where do I find these people? That's high level, a really basic approach on how you can really turn that around for yourself.
Yeah, once you have that clear vision, which is of where you are, you can start deciding how you're going to get where you want to go. I think defining that vision of what you want to do, how you want to exit is important. Doing the audit, and then start putting the pieces in place. And sometimes that might mean getting rid of pieces or changing pieces out.
Right.
Yeah.
That you thought you needed. But maybe it's not really the right fit.
Yeah.
So. Well, I think this has been a really great discussion. Yeah, I mean, this is something that I think a lot of business owners really need to think about a little bit, and don't be afraid to talk about it with your team, with your close team and with your management team, and talk about it with the advisors. I mean, you might be surprised. There might be, for example, you might be scared of talking about an exit, and then you start discussing it with someone. You find out that someone on your team is willing to step up and start doing something that you really need, and maybe they're interested in taking over the business at some point. And maybe there's a different path out there for you just because you've brought up the topic.
Absolutely. My recommendation to everybody out there is, if you are listening to this podcast and you're watching and you say, you know what, I think I'm an Alice in Wonderland entrepreneur, then you need to ask yourself, well, what do I need to do to change that? Because I don't want to be lost. I don't want to just go through the motions.
Yeah.
I want to have a goal. I want to surround myself with people that can help me achieve that goal. Because look, at the end of the day, if you do well, the people that you hired, they're going to do well. Their families will do well. The communities that they live in will do well. On a larger scale, the city, the state, the country does better because of entrepreneurs who are able to successfully execute and grow a business and affect those around them. So while it's great that you're making money, you actually are having a much bigger impact. And so educate
Right, that's a good
yourself,
point.
ask for help. Have the audacity to ask for help, because that will change the way your business is going to grow and what it's going to do for you and for the people that you affect.
Yep. Well, Manuel, we really appreciate you being here today, and we're gonna, like we said, we're gonna bring you back frequently because we want to pick your brain on these topics. And
so much to talk about.
And we know you got a lot to talk about.
much.
We talked about the last few days, and we've already got a whole bunch of ideas and things that we know that entrepreneurs need to really consider, and we're gonna add them a lot of value there. But I wanted to real quickly talk to our audience out there. If you guys are finding value in these conversations, you got to let us know, because we don't want to monopolize Manuel's time. We don't want to monopolize our time. If you guys aren't finding value in it, we're here for you guys. So the way for you to do that is hit the subscribe button, like the video, send us a comment, and let us know what you want to hear about. We could tailor these topics to what you want to hear about, but we just got to know what those are. So you'll make sure that if you guys are finding value, that you guys are letting us know. And the way to do that is by those ways we described. Boz, you want to send us off here?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, Manuel, I wanted to say thank you for your time. This has been great. Everyone, be on the lookout for more of these videos tailored specifically to entrepreneurship. Once again, it's been Capital Interactive with Adam and Besim, thanking our special guest, Manuel, and we'll see you on the next side.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.